all need it, we all want it, we use it every single day. Yet, do we ever stop and think about what money actually is? In the chase to get more of it, we forget to ask, what is it that we're chasing? In a dozen years of schooling, the first principles of money are purposefully never taught to keep us chasing. Every working day, we go through the motions to keep our heads above water, pay those taxes, pay that debt, pay those bills. This video is your break from the race. In it, I will show you what money is, what makes it work, what makes it break, and how it all affects you. Money is much more than paper bills or numbers on a screen. It is the lens through which we view our most valuable resource, our time on Earth. It affects our plans, our motivations, our safety, our time with loved ones, the way we build our entire lives. But what is it at its very essence? Money has three main roles. The first one is a medium of exchange. Money is a good that is acquired to be exchanged for other goods. It is the easiest good to sell. If I challenge you to exchange $100 for something, anything, it will be much easier than if I challenge you to do the same with a hammer, an ironing board, or a pair of glasses. Without an effective medium of exchange, humanity would still be stuck in Stone Age barter. Money is an essential lubricant for a sophisticated economy. The second role of money is a store of value. Civilization can only evolve if people have a way to save some of what they produce for the future. Money acts like a battery that transports present energy into the future. In order to store value, money needs to be durable and protected from devaluation. In other words, it must be difficult to destroy and difficult to produce. The third role of money is a unit of account. In a complex economy, money supports a crucial information system. Prices are essential signals for producers on how to allocate their resources and for consumers on how to spend their paychecks. An efficient unit of account requires a stable supply to avoid distorting the price signal and to minimize malinvestment. Money can assume another covert role, being a system of control. If a tiny minority have a monopoly to easily produce the money and the vast majority have to work hard to get it, guess who controls who? But more on that later. Now that we know what money does, what qualities would ideal money have? Well, it would be scarce, it would be portable, divisible, durable, fungible, recognizable, and permissionless. Ideal or sound money must be scarce because if someone can produce it easily, they will abuse their power and devalue everyone else's savings. Scarcity is determined by stock-to-flow ratio. The stock is the available stockpile of a commodity. The flow is what gets added to the stockpile in a year. To use gold as an example, the stock is the amount of available gold above ground. The flow is the yearly addition of newly mined gold. The world's gold supply increases by approximately 1.5% per year. 100 divided by 1.5 gives gold a quite high 67 stock-to-flow ratio. The commodity needs to be not only difficult to extract, but also have a large existing stockpile. Rarity is not enough. For example, platinum is more difficult to find than gold, but most of it gets consumed by industry. The accumulated stockpile of platinum is more or less equal to the annual production, which gives it a stock-to-flow ratio of 1. So platinum might be an expensive metal, but it cannot be an ideal form of money right now. In short, the higher the stock-to-flow ratio, the better the money is. By being scarce, money is a great store of value. A stable supply also makes it a great unit of account because prices can remain relatively stable or slowly decrease as productivity increases. An inflating monetary unit would be a poor measuring stick for economic inputs and outputs. It would be like trying to measure a table while the length of an inch keeps increasing. To be a sound medium of exchange, money must be easy to move across space. easy to divide for any kind of purchase, from a jet to a nail, easy to split into interchangeable units, so fungible, easy to identify as being money, and easy to transfer without the permission of a third party. So how much money should there be? Well, this next quote will explode a few Keynesian economists' brains. As Saifedean Ammous writes, any supply of money is enough for an economy as long as it is divisible. Money is valuable because of its purchasing power, not because of the amount of paper bills or the number of zeros on a screen. Gold was the soundest form of money humanity ever had before 2009. I'll talk more about that in my next video. Gold is scarce and difficult to produce. It doesn't rust or deteriorate in any way. It cannot be destroyed. It can be divided into smaller interchangeable units. It is relatively easy to recognize. However, it has to be melted down to confirm its authenticity. And if no one is stopping you physically, you can give your gold to anyone else without asking for permission. But the thing is, gold could not keep up with the speed of 20th century telecommunications. Moving bars of gold for final settlement became simply too long and costly for a world connected by the telegraph, the telephone, and ultimately the internet. This led to the adoption of a new kind of money. The accurate way to call today's money is fiat, or fiat currency. It means by decree in Latin. In other words, the value of fiat comes from the authority that says it's valuable. So how does fiat come into being? Well, in one word, debt. But before we get into that, it is crucial to understand that today's money exists in two main layers, the base layer and the broad layer. We are used to operate in the broad layer of money. Simply put, broad money, or retail money, is the currency circulating between us and commercial banks. What you see in your checking account is part of the broad money supply. Oh, by the way, that number in your checking account, that's not how much money is safely stored for you at the bank. That's how much money the bank owes you on paper. It doesn't mean they have it on hand, but that's another story. Base money, or wholesale money, however, circulates only between the commercial banks and the central bank. That money is also called reserves. People like me and you do not have access to it. When a commercial bank issues a loan, it doesn't take money from depositors to loan to the borrower. It actually adds new currency into circulation. In other words, it multiplies the broad money supply. Legally, commercial banks require very little of their money on hand in order to operate. And even when big banks gamble and fail, they often get rescued by the government and the central bank. But more on that later. Here's a simple example of how commercial banks multiply the money supply. Let's say I have $500 in my bank account. You have $500 in yours, and I want to buy your sexy espresso machine for $1,000. I don't have enough money, but I'm a gourmet caffeine addict, so I borrow $1,000 from my bank. The bank credits $1,000 into my account. The loaned money gets transferred to your bank and appears in your checking account. You give me the espresso machine, I now have $500 of assets and $1,000 of liabilities as debt to my bank and a way to make delicious espressos. And you have $1,500 in your account. Did you catch that? We started with only $1,000 between us, and now we have $2,000. The money supply has been expanded. This expanding game of musical chair continues as long as borrowers can kind of repay their debts over time. However, there are much fewer chairs than people dancing around them. It's liabilities all the way down. Everything is a claim of a claim of a claim, reliant on perpetual motion and continual growth to not collapse. Lynn Alden. But money is only multiplied on the broad layer, so how does it appear on the base layer? Well, the simple answer is, it appears out of thin air, thanks to the government and the central bank. When the US government wants to spend more than it collects in taxes, which is always the case, it issues debt in the form of treasuries. There are three types of treasuries categorized by how much time the government has before it has to repay the debt in full. Treasury bills, treasury notes, and treasury bonds. On top of the principal repaid when the treasury matures, the government has to make interest payments to its debt holders. Anyone can purchase US government debt. Me, you, corporations, banks, foreign governments, even aliens. I'm sure if the US government could find a way to sell its debt to aliens and keep spending, it would. The Federal Reserve, however, cannot purchase this debt directly from the US Treasury. It has to go through commercial banks selling the debt, usually at a profit. So what do the banks sell the debt to the Fed for? Well, reserves. Where does the Fed get those reserves? Nowhere. It just types them on a computer and they appear in the banking system. You heard that right. The Federal Reserve purchases US government debt and other financial assets with money that it creates out of thin air. This is how the government and the central bank inflate the base money supply. As commercial banks receive reserves in their accounts with the central bank, they give out more loans and in turn multiply the broad money supply. When the money supply inflates, everyone holding the currency loses their purchasing power as the prices of goods and services go up. Today's money is broken because, unlike all other goods, it requires no effort to be produced. It needs no proof of work. Fiat increasingly divorces economic reward from economic productivity and instead bases it on political allegiance. Seyfeddin Ammous. Your most important financial decisions are not the ones you make with your employer, with your bank, with your spouse, but rather the ones you make with your future self. In any society, the quality of the money is a dial on everyone's time preference. In other words, the better the monetary medium, the more people are incentivized to think, plan, and provide for their future. The lower someone's time preferences, the more inclined he is to postpone gratification and plan for his future. The higher someone's time preferences, the more he thinks about consuming in the present with no thought of tomorrow. Civilization can only be built by people with a lower time preference. When the chosen monetary medium is reliable, people feel more secure about their futures. They grow their savings and embark on long-term projects that will likely increase the wealth of the entire society. Whereas when the monetary medium is unreliable, people can only think of spending it on consumption as fast as possible to just make it through the day, since tomorrow's money will buy less than today's money. When future well-being is discounted, people are incentivized to borrow from their future selves by getting deeper into debt. But it gets worse. Unsound money also incentivizes war. Fiat currencies manipulated by their central banks lead to friction in international trade. Governments become able to finance wars for decades by monetizing their debt with their central banks. They pay for violence by covertly devaluing everyone else's savings. And in general, populations with higher time preference will be more likely to accept conflict over cooperation. Just remember who came to power following hyperinflation in Weimar Germany. The soundness of the monetary medium does not just improve the economy, it leads the entire society towards wealth, abundance, order, and beauty. On the other hand, if the money is broken, it leads society backwards into poverty, shortages, decadence, and ugliness. So, where do we go from here? Gold used to be sound money, but it's too slow for the 21st century. Fiat is fast, but it is centralized, censorable, and not scarce. Well, There is one viable alternative that is decentralized, secure, scarce, portable, divisible, fungible, recognizable, and permissionless. But that will be the subject of my next video. For now, let me just leave you on a little hint.